Yay! Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 329.
We're officially way up there.
Yeah, we're ancient by this point. Been doing it far too long. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited about tonight's episode. I say that every week, but anytime we get a chance to have Rickey Gates on the show, it's like the best thing ever. Rickey is one of my favorite people on the planet Earth, one of my favorite runners to follow, adventurers, and tonight we get to talk to him about a very cool project. Some of you may have seen this movie, Transamericana. It is a wonderful film documenting Rickey's run across the United States a few years back, put out by Wandering Fever and Dean Leslie and their whole crew. Beautifully shot, beautifully done by both Rickey and an amazing team of people. We're going to talk about that movie tonight, Transamericana, as well as maybe a little bit of Rickey's book, which we have there in the background. So sit back, relax, everyone. Ginger Runner Live, episode number 329.
Wow. Sounds about right.
Begins now.
Ginger Runner.
Yay! Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 329. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Monday to spend a little bit of it with us. Yay. We're getting up there. We are really getting up there. 329 episodes. Can't believe we've actually gotten to this point. Tonight's going to be a really fun episode because we get to bring back one of our favorite people on planet Earth. He's a fantastic ultra runner, adventurer, storyteller, wordsmith. He's just super inspiring and just a wonderful human and extremely kind. And he's very kind with his time tonight to join us on the show. Rickey Gates is here to talk all about his new movie, Transamericana, that documents his run across the United States, 3,500 some miles over the course of 5+ months. It is available for all free right now on YouTube. I actually have a link in the description of this video that you can go watch the movie. We will probably be talking about the movie with spoilers tonight. So
there's your warning.
There's your warning. If you haven't seen the movie, just go watch it. It brought me to tears. Like, it was pretty emotional in places. And I'll talk to that tonight with Rickey. But go watch the movie. You can come back and watch this episode with Rickey if you have not seen it. If you have, sit back, relax. This is going to be a good conversation tonight. But before I introduce Rickey, of course, hi, I'm Ethan, and I'm joined by Kim.
Hi, Ethan.
How are you?
Good. What's up, everyone? Kim Tashima Newberry here. I have to address this right away since I am Canadian. It is Canadian Thanksgiving today. There's lots of people talking about what they're doing for dinner and stuff tonight.
Yep.
The border's closed, so we're having Canadian Thanksgiving here tonight.
Since we've been married, this has been an amazing byproduct. One, incredible wife. So, let's be honest. That's amazing byproduct number one of having you as my wife is that you're my wife. Having a Canadian in the home now, you get 2 Thanksgivings. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So tonight we get to...
we're feasting.
We're feasting after this episode.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving to all of our Canadian viewers.
But more importantly, the reason why I'm here, we are live. We'll be bringing Rickey on in just a second. So if you do have questions for Rickey, you can ask them in the chat room. There's already questions rolling in.
Yeah.
There's already people saying, I've been watching the film over and over and over again, loving it.
It really is a fantastic story. It's just fantastic to watch Rickey go through this process of running across America and for the reason he did it and the things that he learned both about himself and other. It's just a beautifully told story by Wandering Fever and Dean Leslie and that whole team and Rickey. So I encourage you, watch the movie and then join us here tonight. In addition to Rickey joining us tonight, we also have a number of Patreon supporters, GR crews, you like to call them here in the live audience as well. Big shout out to all of those who support us on Patreon, patreon.com/thegingerrunner. It is because of them that we're able to do these live shows every single week. We also do a daily live show. It's called Daily Brew. So every day we go live for about an hour over a cup of coffee or over a beer. And we talk about running, training, recovery tools, YouTube movies, stuff like that. It's just been a fantastic byproduct of doing all of that. So our GR crew supports us and all that we do there. And one individual at the top tier on Patreon, Brian Sands, has been a longtime supporter, and we like to shout him out at the beginning of every show because he's just gone above and beyond in his support. He himself is an inspiration. He ran his first marathon at 50, his first 50K the next year. He's currently training for the Cocodona 250-mile endurance event coming up next year in 2021. So a huge shout out to Brian Sands for always supporting what we do. We love supporting him and what he does as well. Without further ado, I'd like to finally bring on our wonderful guest. So Rickey is not a stranger to Ginger Runner Live. He's been on the show a number of times. We actually had him on after, or right near when he dropped this book. This is his book that documents the 3,500-mile run across the United States. But there's now a movie. We had to bring him back since we've both seen the movie. Bawled our eyes out. Just a lot of self-introspection and everything like that. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Rickey Gates.
Yay!
Hello, my
Hi,
friend.
guys. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Where are you currently? Like, where are you coming to us from? Because, I mean, obviously reading your book and watching the movie, you could be anywhere.
I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I moved here with my wife just over a year ago. I've got my little map. This is something that I'm doing everywhere that I go. Everywhere I move to now is doing an every single street thing, and I'm about a third of the way done with Santa Fe. But yeah, it's a beautiful day here, enjoying the last of the fall light that we have and getting some yard work done. So today I've been digging out stumps. That's my strength work, strengthening routine.
The old cross training, nothing like digging out stumps. I think the last time we had you on, you might have just been starting the every single street in Santa Fe. How long have you been working on it? Months?
Yeah, not quite a year now. I'm definitely going much more leisurely than I did with San Francisco. San Francisco, I was doing 30 plus miles a day for nonstop for about 6 weeks straight. And this one is more like 5 miles here, 10 miles here. Occasionally I'll do a 20-mile run, but once or twice a week. And then I kind of ramp it up more during the winter time. The summertime for me is time to get into the mountains on the trails, and the winter time is more kind of like, where do I live? Who are my neighbors? Let me try and figure this way out in this weird medium that we all participate in called running. So yeah, that's the brief broadcast right there.
It's yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, Kevin in the chat room says, Rickey has inspired so many people to run their local streets. It's so awesome. And Mike had a question as well, just saying, Rickey, how does it feel to have inspired so many people to cover every single street in their home cities?
It feels really, really cool. Like I was hoping that the project would take on to some extent. And it's really just blown up all over the world. And I only take a little bit of credit for it. Like, this is something that people have been doing before I did it. The only difference is that I put a name and a hashtag to it. And luckily I have the muscle of Solomon behind me to help tell that story. But it really is super cool and like inspiring to me. Like, if ever I'm kind of fading on this project, I just pull up the hashtag, which when I started it had like 3 or 4 photos, and I looked a few days ago and it has over 8,000 photos attached to that.
Wow.
That tagline now, and that's like Moscow, Dubai, Paris, all over the United States. And like there's just some things that you can't really plan for. And I didn't plan for there to be a pandemic right now in 2020. And lo and behold, this is kind of the perfect running project for all of us when our races are being canceled and we're not allowed to go across the border up to Vancouver Island and run the West Coast Trail or whatever it might be. But this one's right out the back door. And so it's really cool to see everybody's little interpretation, or oftentimes much bigger interpretation of the same project. So yeah, it's really cool. I encourage people to look at it, like on Instagram, just type in every single street hashtag and be inspired.
I can only imagine how surprising that is for you to have this every single street project, 3 or 4 photos attached to this hashtag that you probably created basically for yourself to sort of keep track of everything. And now to have thousands of photos from around the world. Is it overwhelming? Do you feel like responsible in any way, like for keeping track of everything? Like, do you feel any burden or anything like that associated with that? Or is it just all good, positive energy and you're just like, it's really exciting?
Yeah, no burden per se. I did start a website, everysinglestreet.com, and initially I was kind of keeping track of everybody's adventures, and I've got a little map on there, and I put a pin where people are doing it, and put their name and kind of highlight a couple people. So that was a little bit of a burden when I realized I couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah.
But that's like the best type of burden that you can imagine, that something that you came up with is taking off beyond your control.
I didn't realize how much it had grown. I mean, I see there's locals here in Seattle that are doing it. I sort of see people in various neighborhoods around Seattle sort of tracking it, sort of like amongst the local community. We see it amongst our community across the U.S. and across the world. Like every once in a while, there's someone's like, "Hey, I'm doing every single street," kind of doing what Rickey did, and you're like, "Ah, this is really cool that it's spread so far." I had no idea just how far it had spread, Rickey. That's amazing, man. It really is a testament to your ability to inspire and show people that there's more to running than just racing. You referred to it earlier, and you referred to it this way in the movie, that running has sort of become this medium for you. I would love for you to speak a little bit on that, because I feel like I connected to that term more so. I mean, you and I have talked about this in the past. We've had you on the show. You sort of mentioned running being something different than racing, but referring to it as a medium it's almost like how an artist would refer to their paints or their pastels or something, right? So what made you realize that running to you was a medium rather than a vehicle?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there, comparing it to, like, I don't know, you wouldn't look at Edgar Allan Poe's pen or something like that and say, like, this is the magic, this is where it all was, because it wasn't there. It was his ability to use his brain and translate all of that down onto paper. And I think it was more in the past few years where I've just kind of been wondering, like, I personally have gone through so many different changes in this sport. I started off running cross country 25 years ago. 25 years ago, and for me back then, it was simply a way to meet other people. I was new to the high school that I was going to. I didn't know anyone except for a couple friends that were on the soccer team, and they quit the soccer team and joined the cross country team. And they told me, this is way cooler than the soccer team. The coach is really nice. There's some senior girls on the team that really think the freshman guys are cute. And so then going from that on to a very brief stint of college running, which was kind of, again, similar to high school, just meeting people. And then racing, and really kind of allowing it to define who I was as a person, this person who is traveling internationally and competing in these races around the world. And then further beyond that, where I hit my mid 30s, and this happens to all of us. You're whether it's in your early 30s or mid 30s or late 30s or into your 40s, you're going to start to slow down. And if you defined yourself as this top level athlete on the top of the podium or somewhere near the top of the podium, you have to reckon with the change that's going to occur. And so that's when I started getting into more my interest in storytelling, and using this platform that I already had, which was running and traveling, to use that and to be able to explore more stories that I'm curious about, and to explore more cultures, not just around the world, but subsequently, with this run across the country, explore my own country, and then with this every single street thing, to explore my own neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So it's something that I've been doing, more than half my life, 2/3 of my life, and it's changed so many times that really, I don't think I could call it anything other than a medium. I'm just curious down the road, like, what else I'm going to discover through it. It's so much more than a sport to me. It's more akin to a meditation, or something along that line, where you just discover more about yourself and about the world and the community around you the longer that you do it.
I love that you refer to it as a medium. I think that really sort of heightened watching what you do for me, because I've always valued what you do as a runner and what you've done as a storyteller and sort of your journey. I think I look at it just a bit differently now as more art, in a sense of, art is created and it can lead people to feel certain ways or think certain things or show them something that they're not familiar with, or, art has different meanings for everybody. But in this case, it's like, I feel connected to what you are doing as a runner. I feel connected to what you're doing in search of other human stories. I feel connected to the fact that every runner has a different story. So it's not like there aren't stories that are better than others or more important than other stories. It's like everyone has a story and those stories are important, and you're kind of discovering that I don't know, Rickey, it's really neat. And I'm glad that you're referring to it as a medium, because it makes it special. It makes what you do special. I want to start talking. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to talk about, in going back to the every single street thing and going back to these people's hashtags, the being able to see other people's use of this sport, this medium of running, and getting a glimpse into their neighborhoods and their lives. Like, for example, seeing, there's a couple people that I really love to follow. One gentleman in Portland and another one in Zurich. And we've got these preconceived notions of what those places look like in our head based on Portlandia, or Zurich is this incredible old city in the Swiss Alps. But to be able to see these people's photos and really kind of see the mundane part of those cities, because the simple words every single street require that you go to the boring parts of the boring parts of those cities.
Right.
It's not just it's not just the Golden Gate Bridge. It's not just the Eiffel Tower. It's not just I'm trying to think of a famous landmark in Portland, but to be able to
Powell's
books. Thank you. Yeah. To be able to look at these different places with the same eye as someone that's just going there, and you never thought that there was something interesting on this street, but it doesn't matter because it's part of the parameters of this project that you're working on, and then you go down there and you discover this amazingly beautiful thing that really only 50 people, the people in that neighborhood ever really see. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think also what you're describing, looking at cities through other people's eyes as well, not just, everyone's going to document things differently as well through a lens. And that is a great sort of connection here to Transamericana, in that you have Wandering Fever, Dean Leslie, and this incredible production crew who were there with cameras in some small parts. I think we talked a little bit about that last time we had you on. We can talk more to that here. But a lot of these months of you being out on your own, you're probably carrying your own cameras. And so you are the eye for this story that's eventually going to be told. Was that a challenge for you? I know you've worked with cameras in the past. We've worked together, you with a camera and documenting stuff in the past. Was it a challenge for you to take on such a big physical journey, but then also knowing that there's going to be a visual component as well? Or was that something that was exciting?
It was, it was without a question a challenge. But it was a challenge that I really enjoyed all throughout the trip. There was kind of two elements to it. There was like the, me running element, and that part is very easy and always has been very easy for me when I started getting into writing articles for like Trail Runner or other publications. Early on, they're like, okay, we need some photos. We'll find a photographer. And I'm like, okay, great. And so it's just like organizing a photographer. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm a photographer. Like, I'll figure out how to take these photos. So for over a decade now, I've been setting up my camera, putting it on, a 10-second countdown, counting down 9, 8, 7, and then running back and forth in front of the camera, looking at the photo, did I get it? Okay, I got it. I can move on.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it was a challenge, but it was one that I knew all about going into this run. It was just a matter of like, there were some days where I was just dead tired. The one right there that you've got behind you, that's that image right there was 6 o'clock in the morning after a 50-mile day, and I was just completely destroyed in the middle of Nevada. The sun was rising. I was moving along. And like at that point, I just didn't want to take any photos anymore. But I'm like, man, this is a nice sunrise, and like this just feels, something about this feels really cool. So that was like 3 takes going back and forth with the baby jogger, setting it up on a little post on the side of the road, and going back and forth. There you have it.
Kind of show it there. Definitely encourage people to get the book for themselves.
Yeah. But then there was a different element which I was really excited about going into the trip, and it became more and more exciting to me throughout. And that was the getting photos of people along the way. And oftentimes for me, that was like, I'd see an interesting person and like, hey, can I get a photo of you? I'm doing this thing, running across the country. And it was like, oh yeah, no problem. And other times it was like, all right, I want to get a photo of this person. I don't think they're going to let me if I just like ask them right away. Like, I need to have a conversation with them. And so I'd sit down and have a 30-minute conversation with this person and almost forget to get the photo in the end because the conversation was so interesting, which was really the whole purpose for setting out on this trip to begin with, was to get to know people. And so that was a really fun challenge initially. Towards the end of the trip, it became a little bit tiring, because I think you see this in the film and possibly in the book. The trip became more and more internal as opposed to external. And so it felt like the need to get photos of people along the way became less important. But I knew also to not necessarily trust that intuition, that still you got to talk to people no matter how tired you are, and share this trip with people that might not be able to do the trip.
Yeah, there's some really interesting shifts in the movie itself, which I'll get to here in a little bit. But of course, we are live with Rickey Gates talking about Transamericana. Kim, you've already pulled a ton of questions aside here. What do we got for Rickey?
Yeah, so we were just talking about some of the wonderful people that you got to stop and chat with. Kevin in the chat room says, Rickey, why do you think those who seem to have less appeared to be so willing to give? In the film, it seemed as though the people who were not always up on their luck were willing to spare a few dollars.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's that saying, you don't get rich by giving it away. And so it could be something... just people closer to the bottom. And I've been close to the bottom oftentimes throughout my life, where you're just, I don't know, maybe a lot less afraid of having nothing. If you've had nothing before, it can actually be really appealing and, nothing to lose. But it's, you also have that empathy towards others, and it's you're a lot quicker to open your pocketbook or open your room. There was a lot of very generous people along the way that were also well off. So, but it was overwhelmingly people that had less that were more generous.
I love that. I mean, in the movie, you see a number of the individuals that you meet along the way, and get a little just brief glimpses into who these people are as humans. And I think that's just the brevity of that. These moments is a wonderful part of the film, because I'm sure you could sit down and do an hour plus of just talking to one of these individuals that you come across and learn so much. And it's an incredible story. The movie shows you just a fragment of that whole interaction. And it's kind of this overwhelming barrage of kindness and connection between people who don't know each other. There's one interaction that I love, Jim Steele. I remember that name because I was like, I need to know. So Jim Steele is the gentleman that gave Rickey apparently $80 You were counting, it was like $80 in cash or something. Jim said, he's like,
and he was insisting.
He's like, what's your cause? And you're like, I'm just running, man. There's no cause. Hi, buddy. And he's like, I want you to have it. I don't want you to question. I just want you to take it. And do you know, have you followed up with him at all? Or like, did you send him $80 back? Or like, do you know what happened to Jim Steele? Cause I'm fascinated by that guy.
I don't. It's one of the shames of the trip is that I didn't collect a lot of information along the way. It was just part of the fatigue that I was going through. Like,
yeah.
And just kind of, yeah, I don't quite know how to explain this, but like at the end of a really amazing conversation, like, hey, can I get you to sign this and like address? And I'm sure that would have worked out. In the film, I said $80. It was actually it was like 160.
Oh my gosh.
It was like a wad of 20s. It was, and I ended up, so after that, I'm like, all right, like people are going to give me money. They don't want no for an answer. Like they feel bad if you turn them down. And so what I started doing is just passing out the money along the way, giving it to people that looked like they needed it more than I did. And
oh man.
And I'd tell them like, here's $20. And they're like, thank you so much. And I'm like, no, it's not from me. It's from this guy, Jim Steele back there. You don't know him. You'll never meet him, but heart of gold. And I think he would appreciate it if I gave this to you. So I ended up with $0 at the end of the trip. And Jim Steele made more than me just happy. He made a lot of people out there happy.
I mean, that was one of those interactions that I immediately remembered. I remembered his name. I remembered sort of the interaction between you and him. Because, knowing you and knowing what sort of journey you're on with this movie, he just thinks he's just a guy running across the country. He thinks it's probably for a cause. And so he's just being a good person. And I mean, I love it. The movie is full of interactions like that, just full of it. And that's what makes it so wonderful. Again, live questions, babe, what you got?
Yeah, Chaos Real asks, Rickey, how did you pick your route across the U.S.?
So I had a lot of fun kind of figuring out how I wanted to go across the country. Like it's not something that I really intend on doing a second time. And so doing it the first time, planning out the route was super important to me. I wanted to incorporate a few different things. I wanted to incorporate American history. I wanted to incorporate the beauty of America, like our nature trails. I wanted it to start in the South because that's the most foreign place in the United States to me. I wanted it to go through my hometown of Aspen, Colorado. I wanted it to finish in San Francisco. And the last thing is that I wanted, what was the last thing? I forget. No, the last thing is that I wanted it to incorporate the river somehow. And that kind of ties into American history. So I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of the American history part. Like I wanted to experience the Pony Express Trail, even though that was only part of our American history for amazingly like just 16 months. I wanted to have this feeling of Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark took the river upriver for a large portion of their journey. They used the Missouri River. And I wanted to experience some of the Trail of Tears. This is the mass forced migration of the Cherokee Indians from the southern Appalachians out to Oklahoma. So yeah, kind of taking all of those things, it kind of created this connect the dots of what this route would look like. And so I was able to do 1,000 miles on trail, 300 miles on the river. I was able to do maybe a couple hundred miles of the Trail of Tears, and then Pony Express Trail off and on throughout Nevada, the Western States Trail in its entirety, and Tahoe Rim Trail, Cocopelli Trail, Colorado Trail, Palmetto Trail, all of these things. It was, for me, it was perfect. So, when I'd get off a trail, I'd simply type in the next trail and, it'd be like getting off the Ozark Highlands Trail and typing in the Colorado Trail. And it's like okay, you are 800 miles, get on this road and this. And so yeah, it was fun to kind of plan it out. I was careful not to plan too much. I did know the trails that I wanted to do in a few key towns, but like looking at specific roads and stuff like that, that would have been 2,000 or 3,000 miles into the trip. I wasn't concerned about that. I kind of figured that out on a day-to-day basis.
The paddle, the stand-up paddleboard section, I understand why you chose to do it because of the historical context and probably just the draw of doing some a unique line on a much bigger line here. But you don't like water. You mentioned that in the movie, and I think you mentioned it on the show before. And what was it a challenge mentally to take on? Well, it's already a challenge to take on 3,500 miles, I can imagine. Watching you start this thing essentially alone on the sand on the Atlantic Ocean, I couldn't help but just feel the overwhelming, ominousness of 3,500 miles ahead of you. But then in that, you have, a lot of miles on a river. You're not a fan of water. Were you dreading that section because of that mental element, or was it something you were looking forward to for the added challenge? Why did you incorporate it in there other than the historical context if you knew that you weren't going to enjoy it?
Well, so I do have, despite not really caring for water travel all that much, I do have a long history of it. I've got a good friend that I grew up with who's he's more important to me than a life jacket out there in the water. Like, the guy is so knowledgeable, and he knew how to read rivers and water and rapids a long time ago. And so normally when I do these things, it's with him. And so just kind of not having him in the picture there was what was most scary. I would say that I was looking forward to it a little bit just because it just seemed like such a weird type of adventure. Initially, my plan was and I had been looking as I was going through Georgia on my way to Chattanooga, getting on Chattanooga's Craigslist and looking for kayaks or canoes or some sort of vessel. And I was telling my friend there, hey, can you help me find this, or even possibly buy it for me? I'll pay you back when I get there. And he's like, great. But this friend of mine, he really thinks you should take a stand-up paddleboard. I'm like, what? I couldn't believe that. And then when I got there, I met this friend of his. His name's Dawson. Really great guy. This guy does 100-mile days on stand-up paddleboards. And
wow.
And he's like, yeah, stand-up paddleboard. It's going to be great. You can stand up, you can sit down, you can move around. If you're in a kayak or whatever, you're just it can be really cramped and uncomfortable. And I'm like, all right, Dawson, whatever you say. And so let's start looking for a stand-up paddleboard. And so then he says, well, I know some people at Rock Creek Outfitters, and I can talk to them, and maybe they'll rent you one or something like that. And he gets back to me a half an hour later, and he said, they're going to let you use one of their rental boards for the next 10 days. And then I'll drive out to Memphis, essentially, and I'll pick you up, or I'll meet you there, and then I'll take the stand-up paddleboard back.
Cool.
And I'm like, wow, that's great. And so we show up there, and they don't have any paddleboards to rent. They're all rented out. And the guy that was working there, he just goes over to the shelf and pulls a brand new stand-up paddleboard off the shelf and attaches a leash to it. And I didn't even sign anything. He just, I just walked out the door. And
he's like, Solomon's really good for it. We know what's up.
And so I think I'd stand-up paddleboarded a total of 2 miles before in my life. And then that first day I did 10. And then over the next 9 other days, I did close to 300 miles. And it ended up turning into a really cool way to see that part of the country. There's rivers going all over the South and the Midwest that are really quite mellow. Like the Tennessee River in that area has been dammed up so many times that you're essentially on flat water for all day, every day. You could be on flat water for 700 miles if you wanted to be.
Wow.
And in a lot of those places, it's difficult to really experience, the level of wilderness that we have out west. And I found that the river was such a great way to really get that experience. You're out there, it's quiet. You camp really wherever you want. Oftentimes that means on people's docks, their private docks. Luckily, it was off season and most people were away. But yeah, it was a cool way to travel. And in all honesty, I've been thinking about trying to do that, like similar sorts of trips on the different rivers throughout Tennessee or Alabama or wherever it might be. Kentucky, they've just got a lot of great rivers out there that are nice and slow moving and not too scary and cool way to see the place.
What a cool thing.
We happen to be in Tennessee while you were on your stand-up paddleboard. And I remember us talking with Billy Simpson. And he was like, yeah, Ricky's just like on the river on the stand-up paddleboard right now. And I was kind of like...
Both of us, because we knew that you had started. We knew that you were running through. We're like, oh, maybe we can see him while he's running through Tennessee. And Billy Simpson's like, he's not running through Tennessee. He's paddling. And we were like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, he's on the river right now. He's on a paddleboard. And we're just like, what is going on? What is Rickey doing? I think he had the whole debrief and knew everything that you had gotten up to and how you got through paddleboard and stuff like that at that point. But hearing it now is just like, I mean, things worked out. Everything seemed to work out. You got a great paddleboard. You had a great experience. And shout out to Rock Creek Runners for making that happen. Or Rock Creek Outfitters. What an awesome part of the journey. I'm really glad that you did it because it sort of added this new element to it. Let's get to maybe one more live question because I've got some specific questions about the film itself, but let's get to more.
Yeah, Austin has a question. Austin says, Rickey, what was something you learned about yourself on your trip, on your run across America?
I think one of the main things, and I think I learned this early on, maybe just a month or two in, was just like simply how capable the human body is to endeavors like this. It just kind of reminded me of, not that I was there at the time, but reminded me of really early human existence where we truly were migratory. We were like going across the country. There wasn't countries back then, but like you had to travel long distances for days on end. And you didn't really think about like, can I do this? It's like, no, you just do it. You have to. Yeah. So just exploring my own human potential and knowing that that's like the human potential was really enlightening to me.
I am super curious about how much footage you collected. Because having put together a feature myself with a lot of footage, it is daunting. I can only imagine how much footage you accumulated over 5 months plus of running. How much did you have? And obviously it took a long time for Wandering Fever to edit it together, but was that an arduous process? And did you have any say in that?
So as far as how much footage I shot, this is probably the most wonderful thing in the world to have somebody else edit the film for you. I don't know. It was I literally handed over cards. So it was Jared Paisley and that was shooting with me for like 10 days at the beginning, 2 weeks in the middle, and then 1 week at the end. And every time I saw him, I handed him a stack of cards, and there was hours of footage in there each time. And then Dean and then one of his employees for a couple months were just going through and sorting out footage. Like, wow. And that was oftentimes like, accidentally left the GoPro running for half an hour. And, you just don't know if you're going to get a little bit of gold in that half an hour. And so someone's literally watching a half an hour of shaky footage where I forgot to turn the GoPro off and sorting it out and all of that stuff. In terms of the story layout, I had some say. Dean Leslie also had the most say in it. The story itself is pretty similar to the book, to Cross Country. They part a little bit. I think you're given a little bit more freedom to explore tangents in a book when you're trying to compress a 5-month journey down to a 75-minute film. It's a huge challenge, as you well know. You have to come up with certain themes and put those together, and they did a great job with it. So yeah, it was great working with them.
I mean, hat completely off to Dean and the entire team, because it is a beautiful movie. Again, really emotional, just because there is so much human element in it, not just external but internal. And I wanted to touch on that. And what I noticed, hi buddy, our dog is being super needy. Hi dude, do you need some love? What I noticed is at the front, there's almost 3 acts. It's like 2 to 3 acts here. The first is very external. I feel like you're exploring the South. You're meeting people. You're learning other people's stories, and you're sort of learning about this adventure and everything that's going to be involved in it. The middle part with you in Aspen, sort of refueling, resetting, feeling like you've accomplished what you set out to do at the beginning. And then the West Coast, the second, or basically the back half of the movie with you sort of exploring internal. Was that intentional? Were things edited in a way that sort of told that 3 act structure, or was it literally the South and the East Coast was a lot of human interaction, and then the West Coast was much fewer and farther between those human interactions, like less to document, I guess? What was the intention?
Yeah, no, like before I set off on the trip, that was not the intention. It really is how the trip kind of unfolded. It would have been a completely different trip for me if I'd have switched the directions and started on the West Coast and finished in the South. I really, really needed those people that were lifting me up along the way in the South. It's just like, it's such a scary thing to start a trip like this, where you're not on the Appalachian Trail. You're not following those white blazes. You're not surrounded by this, constant reaffirmation of what you're doing, and everybody around you is going through the same thing. So it was so important to have just like incredible support throughout the South. Like in a gas station, a guy looks at me and I'm starting to grow a beard out, and I've got my hiking sticks and my backpack and weird running shorts, and it's just a 1 minute long interaction. Like, what are you doing? I'm running across the country. And the guy pretty much drops his beer. Yes, he was drinking a beer at the gas station, and he's like, "You're doing it. You're doing it." And I'm like, I am doing it. Thank you. Like I really needed that. And I don't think as I got further west, as I had already proven myself, I'd already done 2,500 miles or 3,000 miles. You go into a gas station and you'd want the same interaction, but you just don't get it. And I actually think that it speaks a lot to our American history. Like there's a lot of that warmth and camaraderie and community in the South. And then as you get further and further west, it's built into our history. Like, you have to be more independent, and you go into a gas station in the middle of Nevada, and you haven't seen a person in a day and a half, and you're thirsty and you're hungry, and the gas station attendant just really couldn't care at all.
Right.
And so I don't know, imagining myself going the opposite direction, where that's just like 200 or 300 miles into the trip is encountering the same person at a gas station in Nevada, it would have been really disheartening. So I think I guess I'm lucky in that I chose to do the route the way that I did. But I was just so grateful to have those interactions throughout.
Let's get to maybe a couple more live questions.
Yeah, a question from Sam. Sam says, how have your interactions with people on the trip changed your interactions with people around you in day-to-day life?
Good question.
Yeah, so I would say that they initially it was like I just became much more open, and it was much easier for me to talk to people and turned me into a much more outgoing person. But the thing about doing something like this is that it really if it's not going to change you for the rest of your life. Like anything, like you're not going to go for a run and that run is going to change you for the rest of your life. That run is going to change you so that you keep running, and then you keep running and you keep running, and that changes you for the rest of your life. And much like that, these interactions with people, it's hard to really hold on to that interaction and keep it. What I've learned since the end of that trip and since doing other projects is how important it is to just keep practicing and just keep that open mind and to just keep tapping into parts of my trip.
It's something that you referred to in the movie, and I don't know, hit me in kind of a particular way. And that's that sort of what you discovered on this journey. People are 90% the same and 10% different, and it's that 10% difference that sort of gets exploited and pits us against each other. And you talked early on in the movie about neighbors and towns, talking about the next town as being like, oh, careful, this next town it's not great. And you'd get to that town, they'd be like, welcome to our town, we're really nice people, but careful of this next town that you get to, they're not really great. And that sort of kind of kept going. And I feel like that was the closest thing that was really able to connect to in regards to, the upcoming election, which is sort of the inspiration to you doing this in 2016 around the election. And you talk about that in the movie as well. Is there anything that you were able to take from this trip, maybe in regards to that 90%, 10%, that maybe our listeners or our viewers can take for themselves and how they approach election, friends, family, community, anything that we can sort of distill from your learnings?
Yeah, well, I mean, as we all have, I've been giving this upcoming election a lot of thought. Probably, I'm not going to say too much thought, but it has affected me immensely, much like the last one did. And I think the thought that I keep returning to, which seems the most important to me right now, is that no matter which way the election goes in less than a month here, in 3 weeks, there's going to be a lot of really pissed off people. And there's going to be some happy people, and there's going to be some really pissed off people. And it's just not sustainable for us to keep going on like that. And like it's essential for our mental well-being to find those people that we're pissed off about, and really without any sort of intention of trying to change their minds, just really trying to understand why they believe what they believe, why they believe that this person should be leading us rather than another person. And, it's, this is a delicate ground to tread. But yeah, just understanding that at the core of everything, we want mostly the same thing. And there's just very different ways of going about doing it. And to just, to fight for what you believe in, but to also really appreciate other people's views, and to appreciate the new normal. And we're human beings, and that is what we do, is we adjust to the new normal. And we've been doing it for 200,000 years. We've been doing it since we climbed out of the trees and into the plains of the Serengeti. But that it's really hard to accept that, and to focus on it, and to really meditate on it is, I think, the most important thing for us right now.
I really appreciate your words, Rickey. I encourage everyone who's watching or listening to go watch Transamericana. I think it's a fantastic journey. that Rickey went on. I can only imagine the number of details, the number of interactions and stories that didn't make the final cut, didn't get documented for whatever reason. I mean, we're talking months and months of travel by foot across our country, and the interactions alone, there's thousands. I can only imagine thousands upon thousands.
The book is a great companion piece.
Absolutely. If you have not grabbed Rickey's book called Cross Country, a 3,700-mile run to explore unseen America by Rickey Gates, I highly encourage you to get it. Available pretty much everywhere. I think we got ours off Amazon.
I think I pre-ordered it while Rickey was on the show the last time.
Yeah, we did it while he was on the show.
Yeah.
I remember doing that. But maybe let's get to one more last live question, and we'll move into our after show with Rickey and try to get through as many questions as possible.
Yeah, so there was a lot of questions in regards to your shoe situation.
Oh, yeah.
During your run, did you have new shoes shipped to you constantly? What were you wearing on your feet?
I went through 11 pairs of shoes. I had stocked them up at my brother's house before I left. He lives in Colorado. And if I can give a plug for the U.S. Postal Service right now, we have the most incredible post office system, I think, in the world, where I can tell my brother I'm going to be passing through this town in a week or in 10 days, send it general delivery, and I'll pick it up there. And so that's how I got my shoes. It was great. There's nothing like a new pair of shoes normally, but man, when you've put 300 miles, 400 miles on a pair of shoes in just a couple weeks, putting on a brand new pair and a new pair of socks is like slipping your feet into heaven.
I could probably talk about gear for another hour plus with Rickey, just in regards to everything he packed or everything he didn't, because he literally was down to a 12-pound pack, I think, at the beginning. Do you remember what the pack weighed towards the end?
It was about 12 in the end. I've got it.
Okay.
My wife is disgusted that I have this here because it still smells. It still smells like brand right off the trail. But Solomon helped me design it. It weighed 12 pounds at the beginning. It weighed 12 pounds at the end. It was, this camera, a GoPro, my iPhone. That was like three of the 12 pounds was just camera gear.
Wow.
It's I think it's the way to go. The kangaroo pouch up front is so essential to distribute weight and to have little things to pick at the whole time.
Gus just decided right now to go crazy. Oh my gosh, you want to say hi to Rickey? You want to come say hi? Are you going to run away? Rickey, we cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join us on tonight's show. The movie is Transamericana. You can watch it on YouTube now. Again, just in the top of this description below this video, this live show, you can go watch it. It's on the Solomon TV's YouTube channel, free. Big shout out to Wandering Fever, Dean Leslie, and Jared. What's Jared's last name?
Paisley.
Shout out to Jared Paisley too. What was it like? Well, we'll talk about that in the after show. Rickey, can you let people know who are watching right now where they can find you on social media, where they can follow up if they have additional questions after watching the movie, where they can share everything that you share, because we love your work so much. Where can people find you?
I'm pretty Instagram heavy. I'm Rickey Gates, RickeyGates. And then Solomon has been a huge supporter of mine for the past decade. And I have done a lot of fun projects with them and hope to continue doing more projects with them. And so check them out as well. They're always putting up interesting stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Rickey. Everyone, go get Rickey's book. Watch Transamericana. We appreciate everyone tuning into tonight's Ginger Runner Live with the man, Rickey Gates. Just amazing. Kim is just going to take us for a little walk. She'll be back for our after show. The after show, we're going to have Rickey just for maybe 5 or 10 more minutes. We have a list of questions that Kim's pulled aside here. We're going to kind of rip through as many as we can in that after show. If you'd like to join us, just go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to our after shows, both live and archive. We do have a segment on the show that Kim normally handles. I'll handle it in her stead as she takes our wild dog outside, but we call it our GR Crew Member of the Week. Basically, we like to recognize members of the community who go above and beyond each and every week out there on their own. So today, our GR Crew Member of the Week is Jessica Schuld. I believe it's Jessica Schuld. She posted that She PR'd her 5K time from a 23:08 to a 22:49 this morning, and that was posted yesterday. So big shout out, Jessica. Congratulations on PRing PRing the 5K time with a brand new 22:49. That's fantastic. Way to go, and way to be our GR crew member of the week, Jessica. That is it for tonight's show, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Gingerbread Live will be back next Monday, of course. In the meantime, get out there, train hard, virtually race harder, and party the hardest. We'll see you guys next week for more Gingerbread Live, or we'll see you in the after show with Rickey Gates. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Ginger.